Have you ever wondered what it would be like to experience significant social media growth and everything that comes with it? I've been super curious myself what it's like to go viral, and I asked an online peer of mine to share her story of Instagram growth. Today on the Fully In It podcast, I have a Brittany McCardle joining me. She is a certified birth educator, and in 2022, she started the Biblical Birth School to address a gap in the birth education space for Christians who desire biblically based trainings as childbirth educators and doulas. We also talk in this episode about what it's like for her to run a rapidly growing business while homeschooling and managing home life. And did I mention she has 6 kiddos? She shares a lot of wisdom for balancing it all, as well as her best tips for growing your community on social media. I know you're going to gain so much from our conversation, so let's go ahead and dive right in. Welcome to Fully In It, a show for moms who are called to grow themselves while growing their families. Join me, Kate Saffel, a life and a business coach for moms, a homeschooling mama of 3, and a woman on a quest to show that our lives become even more meaningful when we remember why we are here and what truly matters most. This show is about going fully in it for you and the people you love by showing up powerfully in motherhood, entrepreneurship, in your home life, and for your family vision. Join me for weekly episodes that will inspire you to live intentionally and by your values, to slow down and truly be present to your family life, to make decisions that grow a profitable business without sacrificing anything in the process, and to become the kind of mom and woman you know you're meant to be in this lifetime. So today I am so thrilled to have Brittany joining me on the Fully In It podcast. Brittany, will you just go ahead and share a little bit about yourself so everyone listening can get to know you?
Yeah. Hey, I am Brittany. I founded the Biblical Birth School. And so I train childbirth educators and doulas to serve women in birth, either in pregnancy or birth, from a biblical worldview. I also support moms and help them prepare for their own unmedicated natural births.
Yeah, which is so amazing. And you're also a mama.
Yes. Yeah, a wife. Yeah, actually, we're going to be married 20 years this year, and we have 6 kids. So,
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
That's pretty epic that you've had that long of a marriage and 6 kiddos and so much to celebrate and be grateful for.
So much. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Well, so I'm so curious, what inspired you to start your business? And what was that like for you to launch your own business online?
Yeah. So when I started as a childbirth educator in 2020, I didn't know that I would be doing what I'm doing now. When I started in birth work, I was really surprised and shocked to find there was no options for Christians. A lot of the birth material education classes and um, avenues for becoming a birth worker or taking childbirth classes were not from a Christian worldview. They incorporated other religions or ideas, New Age ideas, even things that were really opposed to the Christian worldview. And I knew that I could offer something for women just like me who were looking for these educational classes on birth from a Christian worldview.
Yeah. So, wow. So you really found a group of people that were not being addressed, right? Like you saw this need not only for yourself, but for other women in your community. And so, what has it been like for you since you introduced the Biblical Birth School? What has the response been like?
It's been amazing. Yeah. When I started, there was one girl that reached out to me. She's like, I want to learn from you. I want to be a childbirth educator, and I know that you're going to be my mentor. Okay. And I hadn't had really any students that I had trained at that point in time. I knew I was going to, But she was the first one that really inspired me. It was like, okay, I think this is a real thing. I could do this. I obviously want to do this. And so I told the Lord, I was like, okay, if she's my only student right now, I'm happy with that. I'm just going to move forward. So that season of time, I actually got her on board as a student, plus 5 other students for my very first
Wow.
class. So I had 6 original, graduates of the Biblical Verse School, and it was just amazing. I was over the moon. It didn't have to be huge. But ever since then, it's just grown exponentially every time I've held a class. So,
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And you know what's so neat about what you said there is I really felt like you kind of held it loosely, right? You just opened it up. You wanted to serve. This one student came to you and then the others followed, right? But you didn't have like an expectation of like, this has to be this way or I don't want to do it.
exactly. Oh, yeah, definitely not. And I still operate my business that way. Like I kind of just roll with things sometimes when the Lord presents an opportunity or just when an opportunity comes up. I'm like, yeah, okay, like let's move forward with this. And I think that's a huge characteristic of a successful entrepreneur is that you really have to be very flexible and kind of just roll with things.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you're getting that prompting. How has that felt for you to follow God's direction, right? Like, has there ever been times where you're like a bit surprised and you're like, okay, where are we heading next?
Yes, definitely. I mean, as an entrepreneur, you have goals, you have desires, you have a game plan, at least to some extent, but there's always this sort of mystery a little bit to business. It doesn't have to be mysterious, but there's always that component that's like, okay, we're going to give it our best shot and then see what happens. There's always that element of needing to trust the unknown because you
Mhm.
can't know exactly what's going to happen next. And if you wait until you can figure out exactly what's going to happen next, then you're not going to be successful. You just kind of have to take that leap of faith.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like that is such a valuable piece of advice for anyone listening because I see that quite a lot where women have the idea and they're dreaming of starting their own business, but they tell themselves, okay, I just need to get this done and then this done, and I'll do that and then I'll do that. And before they know it, years have gone by and they haven't fully leaped into their business and taken that, that full control, but also like releasing the results of what is going to happen.
Exactly. Yeah, there has to be that really like deep inner why. Why are you doing this? If, I'm thrilled just teaching one person, and I am because I love what I teach so much, right? And I believe in what I teach so much that you really have to love it. You have to have that inner motivation. Like I would do this for nothing. I would do this even for one person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. And that's how you know that you're really in it for the right reasons.
Mhm.
Because when you're so passionate about something that you would do it for free, right? It shows where your heart is. And at the same time, what you offer is so valuable that you get to charge for this. You get to be compensated for the education that you are giving your people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I encourage all my students all the time. If you ask them, I tell them a lot, you need to be compensated for your work. It is really important. There's a lot of factors why it's important to be compensated for your work. But at the end of the day, you have to love it so much that you would still do it for nothing.
Yeah, that's really wise advice. So, something you and I were talking about before we started recording, and I've mentioned this to you a few times because I've just been in awe of you. And for context, for anyone listening to this or watching this later, Brittany and I have known each other for a while,
Yeah.
probably since maybe like what, 2015, 2016, something like
Yeah,
that.
like 8 or 9 years. That's amazing.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And so Brittany and I connected way back when my family was dreaming of traveling full time, and her family was also traveling by sea, by boat,
That's right.
right?
Yeah.
Yes, which is probably a whole nother podcast episode. if
Absolutely.
Yeah, if we weren't busy mamas and we could pull a 2-hour episode here like some podcasts do, then we
Yeah.
would go into all of the things. But yeah, so we met years ago when I was co-hosting Cohesive Home, and you
Hmm.
had guest written for us
Yeah.
at that time,
Yeah.
primarily about traveling and motherhood. And then you've evolved over the years, right? And you started your business. And so all that to say, I've watched your Instagram transform over the
Yeah.
years, seen that evolution, and you have just taken off
Yeah.
over what probably the last year or two. Your community has exploded. And
Yeah.
I'm really curious for you, what has that process been like? Was there anything you were intentionally doing to grow your audience, or was it just organic and kind of just happened?
Yeah, I would say it's been intentional for sure. But at the same time, there is the organic element. And I think everybody who's ever gone viral or grown a lot in a short amount of time will tell you, if they're honest with you, they'll say, I don't really know how that happened. And there's always that element of, wow, it just kind of takes off sometimes. But I have been intentional from the beginning of posting consistently. And the biggest thing is just learning new skills. Um, I have hit so many plateaus. I have lost so many followers, that feeling.
Yeah.
And it always brought me to the point of like, okay, I am frustrated. I'm going to learn some new skills so I can figure out what I'm doing wrong, you know? I never let it, make me give up. Yeah, even though I know there's so many times, right, where we kind of do, we kind of want to give up.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's sometimes it's frustrating, but it always brought me to the point where like, I know I can do this. So let me figure out some new skills. What am I doing wrong? What am I doing right? Get back in the game and keep going. And so eventually, this year in particular, thankfully, it has really exploded. I've been super happy with that progress. And it was because I learned some new skills and I figured out what I was doing right, what I was doing wrong. And I got some new mentors and I learned from them as well. So,
Yeah, which truly makes such a difference, right? Like when you have that willingness to problem solve and figure it out and stay committed to the long term, right?
mhm.
It truly does have an impact. And I just really value what you're saying about that, because I think sometimes what happens if we're not seeing what we want to see with social media, or maybe it's our email marketing or our sales in general, we may look at it and just say, oh, there's something wrong with me, right? I'm the problem, instead of viewing it as a skill set that we just simply haven't learned yet.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I just always thought to myself, it's about what you believe and what you think and what you say to yourself, really. Because I always thought, if other people can do it, then I can do it. I just need to learn how, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what have been some of the unexpected challenges, things that have happened with all of this growth, right? Like we hear stories,
Mhm.
and I know that this is something I hear in my community, right? It's like this twofold thing of women wanting the growth. They're like, oh, I just love to go viral, or I would love to have this happen. And at the same time, they're so afraid of what might happen because they've heard all of these horror stories. And so, what has it been like for you?
Yes, it has been hard. I have heard that as well. Some people say going viral was the worst thing that ever happened to me. I've heard those stories too.
Mhm.
And it is hard. It has been hard at times. You get a lot more exposure. You will undoubtedly get more criticism. Like that's pretty much expected. Okay, I am doing well because I am getting more criticism. I'm getting more criticism because I'm doing well. It just comes together. You're going to get more exposure, more people will find you. And the point of really the key to good content and growth is attraction and repelling, right? So if your content is good and you're growing, you're going to attract a lot of people who really like what you have to say. But at the same time, you're always going to attract people that are repelled by you, who don't like you, don't like what you're saying. So you're going to see both. And that is hard. It is hard to be criticized, and um people are really downright mean on the internet. And it's, you kind of have to have a little bit of a thick skin, but it really goes back to that why, that deep internal motivation. I know what I'm doing is important and I love it. So yeah, I don't like being criticized, from people that don't know me, but it's okay. Like, I'm going to just keep moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that so much. I think again, that's something that you hear of happening, right? And you don't want it to become an instance that causes you to shut down and, dim your impact in the world, right? So, what are some of the things that you have told yourself? Like, you focus on your why, like why you're doing it. Is there anything else that you've told yourself to encourage yourself as you're receiving some of those hateful comments?
Yeah, I mean, as a Christian, I can always go back to the word. The Bible says that when we're speaking the truth about God or anything, really, we're going to be persecuted. The Bible tells us to expect that, and to expect that not everybody will like you. And, the Bible goes even so far to say, as you should rejoice when not everybody likes you, because that means you're doing the right thing. That means you're following in the steps of the people that came before you, who are also doing the right thing. And not everybody liked them for telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, okay, remembering that, it's like, I'm on the right track. It's okay. Not everybody's going to like me. And I just need to expect that. And it does help to know that that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's such good advice. So, you recently came out of a launch,
Yeah.
right? And it looked like it went incredibly well for you. What is it like for you to balance launching with 6 kiddos, running a home, right? Everything that's on your plate? Like, what is the behind the scenes of
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's so fun, and it is a little crazy. I'm sure you know that too. It's a little bit of a
Yeah.
crazy time. And some normal things get put on hold. Like, we may even not really do homeschool for a week, at a time. Try not to go too long without doing that. But we might take a few days off, and my husband might take the kids one day so I can write some emails or focus on onboarding new students, and we'll just kind of change up our routine. Because we homeschool, we can do that, and it's okay. We can be flexible. Again, that flexibility is so key. You can't do 100% both at the same time. Like, doing a successful launch and giving your all into homeschooling your children, you can't really do those two things at the same time. So you kind of have to let one go and just kind of go in and out of these seasons where you focus on one more than the other, and that's okay to do that.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that as a fellow homeschooling mama who is about to go into a launch at the time of this recording. I think by the time this episode goes out, I'll be past the launch. But I totally understand, right? And I loved what you said about you can't do 100% in your business and 100% in home life at the same time. You have to lower your expectations
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
everything.
Yes. And again, you have to have a reason for why you're doing that. There's a reason a lot of people give up and don't continue if they don't see the purpose behind all of it. You could think, I'm a bad mom, I'm not homeschooling my kids, or I'm slacking or whatever, but there's that big purpose behind it. It gives it all the meaning that you need to keep going.
Yes, it truly does. And so, that makes me wonder for you when you're in a launch or really just like leading your business in general, what does motivate you forward? Like when you think about your family life and your vision of what you have together, right? What calls you forward in that way?
That's a great question. And that has honestly changed over the last few months, even the last couple of years. In the beginning, I'm not even sure I had like a huge grand vision. I just knew that I wanted to do it. And I found this, it like lit up this thing in me that I didn't know could be lit up, you know? Just this amazing, like this part of me that I didn't know was so active and alive when I was doing this work. And that motivated me forward. But recently, we've been switching some things around in our home life. We're hoping that my husband can leave his job at some point, and he has his own businesses that he's working on. And so
My
we're
goodness.
hoping to just be entrepreneurs and be able to go travel. And that's really his heart is to travel. He loves traveling. And so I go along for the ride, you know. Traveling is amazing. It was never my first choice, but the more I do it, the more I love it. And so that's what we hope to do one day is to work together at home and travel more than we are now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know that I love a vision like that, right? I can always get behind more travel. Now, would this be by boat or some other kind of travel?
I think both. I think maybe sailboat and maybe just airplane. We're actually planning a trip for later this year, something my husband's always wanted to do. I'm gonna leave that as a surprise,
Okay.
but but that will just be by airplane. So it'll be a different traveling for us. Yeah. For those who don't know, we mostly have just traveled by sailboat. So yeah.
Which is right. It's just so unique. Because, how many people do you meet who their primary mode of transportation, when they're going on trips has been sailboat?
There you go. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah, well, I'm excited for you and your family and all the opportunity that it sounds like your business is creating, your husband's businesses as well. So, what has that been like for the two of you to balance these entrepreneurial responsibilities,
Mhm.
right, that you both are carrying? How
Yeah.
has that been?
Yeah. And I will say this has been a big a growing learning experience. Probably one of the hardest things that I've had to overcome is working together with him at home 24 hours a day. He used to go out, to a regular job. He was gone all day. And that was one of the biggest shifts for us. It was difficult, I'm not going to lie, of just learning how to communicate, learning how to be together all the time and share, which you think about it when couples are separated from
Yeah.
working, you don't really have to share a whole lot. So, we've learned over the last 3 years, how to do this more and more successfully. And we're pretty good at it now. Do we still, yeah, we still we have tension sometimes when communication isn't flowing smoothly. And we actually share an office. So it was like, are you going to be done with your meeting? Because I have a meeting and we're always like in and out of the same office. So it's tricky, but yeah, we've made it work and now we love it. We do. It gets easier over time.
Yeah, yes, yeah. And sometimes there's such like beautiful outcomes that arise when you're forced to, share things, to have to work together, to figure out your communication in a way that, like you said, you wouldn't have to if you were primarily home and he was out of the house.
Mhm.
You just don't have those opportunities to do so.
Exactly. Exactly. And it was difficult at first. So if you're in that season, don't give up because it gets easier, I promise. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's just so different. Yeah. So, what does a typical day look like for you? I know, again, when you're an entrepreneur and you're homeschooling, days tend to look a
Yeah.
bit different here and there, depending on if you're launching or not. But
Mhm.
like, what would just a typical day look like for you?
Yeah, well, I don't wake up super early right now. That would be helpful, but we have little babies, right
Yeah,
now, and we're up at night with them. So, um, I wake up not super early, but I do try to get up before my kids. I'll try to work for a short period of time before we really get homeschool going. Maybe I'll try to do some emails while they're eating breakfast or something like that. And then we start homeschool together. We try to do it all together if we can for maybe 2 hours. And the older kids might do some independent work on their own, which is helpful. But we just do homeschool in the morning, and then the baby has a nap, and I'll do some more work during that nap period. And my kids play outside a ton, so they're usually outside during that point in time.
that
In the
helps.
Yeah, it does help. In the afternoon, we'll all do chores or we'll do house stuff together, and kind of get the house together, get ready for dinner. And I will usually again work after my husband gets off of work, which is really nice. And when it's launch season, like has been now, I'll stay up pretty late, probably later than I should sometimes, when I'm launching, to get more stuff done. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I really appreciate you saying, because I do believe that we can design our businesses to fit in, a reasonable amount of time weekly as moms, right? And it's kind of our duty to make sure that our business doesn't completely take over family life. But at the same time, we also have to be honest
Mhm.
about when we're in launches, there's like a big push that you find the time where you can find the time. And sometimes that means you are staying up late, you're waking up early, you're getting creative about how can I carve out an extra hour, 3 hours, whatever it is that you need.
Exactly. Yeah. And like we were talking before this call, sometimes it's a push, sometimes it's a stretch, and it's not comfortable. I know you always talk about this, which I love, which is getting outside of your comfort zone. And in a business, you're going to be doing this constantly, especially if you want to grow. You have to get outside of your comfort zone. And sometimes that means staying up late. That's not comfortable,
Yeah.
to just getting done what needs to get done.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I love that. Yes, right. It's the sooner you can get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right?
Mhm.
And like accept that as just a normal part of being an entrepreneur, it really does accelerate your growth because you become more willing to do things that other people aren't, who are very fixated with staying comfortable and things looking the same. So it's really awesome that you hold that truth. And I think you've really seen the impact too in your business. So with this most recent launch, how did it go? And was there anything about it that surprised you?
Oh, those are great questions. So, yes, so I will say before I say how it went, okay? So in December, because it's April now, right? Of the time of this recording, but in December, I knew that I needed like a higher level strategy. I ended up hiring a coach at that time and knew that I was going to be launching at the end of March. So I gave myself like 3 months uh, to really have probably the biggest launch I knew that I was probably going to have, because the more you prepare, the more time you spend getting ready and getting everything together for that launch, the better it's going to go. I can't remember where I heard this now, from who I heard it, but the saying goes, the longer the runway, the bigger the launch, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
longer you prepare for that launch, it's going to be a bigger launch. So that's what I did, and it went amazing. It went really, really well. I surpassed the goals that I had, which was so great. And I know you know this too. It's not even really about the income, although that's amazing, but it's about that impact that that you want in the world. And so that's what I was super excited about. And it was definitely my biggest launch I've ever had. And I know it's just going to continue to grow.
Yes. Yes. Well, congratulations. Oh my goodness, that's so
Thank you.
exciting.
It
And you
was.
put in the preparation. And I
Mhm.
think that that's something that maybe doesn't get talked about as much as it should. That, with great intention, you can experience incredible results. And
Mhm.
so I never heard the runway analogy there, but I think that that's so fitting.
Yeah.
And so that was really smart of you to just set yourself up for that level of success. And, I don't know if you feel this way, but for me, I feel like when I have all my ducks in a row for a launch well ahead of time, there's always things that come up.
Yeah.
There's always things that I'm like, oh no, like I missed this. I have to do this. I forgot, whatever.
Mhm.
Right. But with that said, it's like when I know I have pretty much everything lined up, then I can kind of like relax a little bit and enjoy the launch process versus
Yeah.
when you're like winging it and you're trying to do everything in the moment. It's just a totally different experience.
Yes, absolutely. I have done the winging before and the winging doesn't really work because then you're in the middle of it of the launch and wondering why it's not really working, but it's because you didn't have a strategy. You didn't have it set up or you didn't know really what you were doing to begin with. And that's okay when you're in the beginning. I think it's okay to not really know what you're doing and just start.
Yes.
Um, but eventually, having that strategy is what makes you grow. So
Yes. Yes. I love that so much. Okay. So final question before we wrap up. What do you see for the Biblical Birth School? Like when you think a year from now or a couple of years from now, like really where is your heart oriented? And like what's exciting you going forward?
yeah, that's such a fun question. Yeah, so I see the biblical birth school becoming even more well known. Like hopefully the name and the opportunities that it provides will reach farther is the plan. And hopefully to even offer more resources for women and moms. I'm working on incorporating a class for moms and not necessarily birth workers into the biblical birth school, just kind of everything being like cohesive in one place where you can find exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's very exciting. Well, I cannot wait to see everything that you have in store. And just, it's been pretty incredible watching your impact, the way you serve your people, the community that you're building. So this will be pretty cool to like check in another year or two and just
Yeah.
see like all of the growth that has happened, since this interview that we've held. So for anyone who they want to find you, they're like, okay, I need to connect with Brittany. Where are all the places that they can find you?
Yeah, so definitely on Instagram. I'm there every day pretty much. And that's the Biblical Birth School on Instagram. And my website is biblicalbirthschool.com without the on there. So biblicalbirthschool.com. Yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. I have loved sitting here. This, like you said, this was a long time coming, this interview, and I'm so happy we got to do it.